Hello and welcome to SuperWoman of Monaco. I'm Serena Benedetti, the host of this podcast. In each episode, I interview remarkable and inspiring women from Monaco who have a positive impact on others, either through their professional activities, their creativity, or their engagement in nonprofits. I hope their stories will help you extend your horizon and see the world through the lens of possibilities. Today my guest is Alicia Sedgwick. Alicia began a career as a lawyer, but has also worked in radio, television, production, and event management. She teaches at the International University of Monaco in public speaking and presentation skills, leadership, and managing people. She also teaches public speaking and presentation skills at the International School of Monaco. Alicia is a corporate communications trainer and professional master of ceremony for events, such as TEDx Monte Carlo, where she brings her individual talent of making everyone feel embraced, included, and involved with humor and empathy. She is also co-curator of Monaco's first TEDx Youth events held at the International School of Monaco. Her first book, Communicating Through Change, became an international bestseller overnight from launch in January this year, 2021. In the episode, we talk about her career path and how she became a communications expert. We talk about her first book, Communicating Through Change. Alicia explained that she wanted to help others by writing about her real-life stories. She described the process of writing the book until the book launch, so very useful for anyone who has an idea or a dream to publish a book one day. She took us into the part of the book that covers the pandemic with a positive message and the importance of keeping hope. We tackle the topic about self-promotion and how it is difficult for women to promote themselves, and Alicia shared some tips. As a corporate communications trainer, she shared some mistakes people make and gave us a bunch of tips to improve our communication skill in real life and online, and not only to look and sound better, but also to feel more at ease and confident when speaking in front of an audience. Here is my conversation with Alicia Sedgwick. Alicia, welcome to SuperWoman of Monaco. I'm very happy to have you today.
Thank you so much, Serena. I'm delighted to be here.
In preparation of this episode, I was thinking, when did I meet Alicia? Do you remember?
Gosh, do you know, I think that it was a few years ago now,
Yes.
wasn't it?
And I thought, maybe 2 years ago. And then I went through my blog because after we met, I made a blog post and it was 2017.
Really?
Yes.
My goodness,
Yeah,
where
almost
does the
4
time
years
go?
ago. Yeah, we don't know.
That's amazing.
So that was a Junior Chamber International event, JCI. You were doing a training on presenting skills to be fabulous at public speaking. I think that was the title. And I was really impressed by what you provide as a training, simple and effective tools to be better at public speaking. So I decided to make a blog post about it and I put a tag on you, communications expert. So really I appreciated all the tips you gave, and one that I use today is to warm my voice because we're doing a podcast, but it's a bit like public speaking. I think in the end it's quite similar. I would like to know how you became this communications expert, because you started as a lawyer, you've been through different fields, we've been in events, radio, and now you're training and coaching clients in the corporate world. How did you become this communications guru, as people call you?
Oh, thank you, Serena. And yes, how lovely your memories of the first time that we met. And indeed, I recall that you did that blog, which was very good and very effective. And I appreciated the tag too. As you say, yes, I started as a lawyer. I was a family lawyer specializing in family law in England. And then I used to come backwards and forwards to the south of France. And when I came here, I would do everything other than the law, which isn't that I then behaved illegally or unlawfully, but I wanted to do other things. So I had my own radio show, I had my own internet TV show, Asking Alicia, which dealt with issues and how they impact on the family. And I also had my own events business, as you say, and absolutely Monte Carlo. And I worked on events, managing the red carpet for events like Laureus World Sports Awards. And eventually I also worked actually on the London 2012 Olympics, moderating the international press conferences for gymnastics and also the basketball finals. And I taught one class then at the International University of Monaco, teaching public speaking, and that was to undergrads. And that developed into many classes for not only undergrads but also for MBA students and master's students. And again, that led on to teaching and training corporate clients, associations and individuals, and also I became the MC for TEDx Monte Carlo. And I have just recently led the International School of Monaco to put on the first ever TEDx youth event in Monaco. And I trained the students for that event and the speakers. So it kind of grew and grew and grew. And word got out that my training was very effective and very unusual. And particularly in the last year that it developed because everyone went online and needed help with their communication in that way and from the various online platforms. So yes, I'm very thankful that my loyal followers then labelled me the communication guru.
So before we dig into this part of communications, I'd like to talk about your book, because that's your recent achievement to publish this book, Communicating Through Change. I would like to know if it's something that you planned for a long time to write a book. So how did you happen that you write a book? And first, when I heard the title, Communicating Through Change, I thought it was a business book. It's my professional quirk, I guess, like leading companies through change in their ways of working or something like that. But it's not at all related to any business type of book. It's a personal testimony, let's say, a real life story, your story. You give some intimate details about some challenges that you faces and how you communicated through these changes. So, for example, bereavement, health, relationship, dementia, abuse, aging. And so that's quite an unusual type of book, and it's really enjoyable to read your story. How did you decide to write this book?
Thank you, Serena. Yes, it is very, very personal. I think that last year, when everyone was so unsettled by the change that happened due to the pandemic, I was caught up, of course, in that change too, and it continues. And my work went from teaching and training in person to mostly online. And I realized how much of a help that was to people, and indeed what my training and teaching can provide to really support and help people. And I wanted to help even more and in a deeper way and a wider way. And so at the end of August last year, beginning of September, I decided that I would write about my personal experience of change, because there's been a lot of changes in my life, and to express what I had learned through those changes, and then to give communication techniques for my readers, for them to be able to communicate their way through the same or similar experiences. And so that was the idea for the book, really to reach out and express my vulnerability, to show that there is strength in that and to give strength to people and support. So that was the purpose of the book. So I wrote about my personal experience end of August, beginning of September. And then it was a question of, okay, what do I do with this? How can I take this further? How can I achieve the purpose that I had in mind for the book? So I contacted a friend of mine who is a very, very experienced brand builder, because I thought that she would be able to point me in the right direction, Sammy Blindell. And indeed she did. She gave me the names of two people. One was a publisher in America, and the other was a publisher and literary agent and author coach, an English lady living in France. And Sammy said to me, I think that both of these people will be helpful to you, but I have a feeling that the lady is going to be, that you'll have a very good link and connection with her. And again, Sammy was absolutely right. I did contact both of them. The gentleman in America was lovely, very, very helpful. And the lady in France, Wendy York, turned out to be my book angel. She really understood me, she got what was the purpose of the book, and she really gave me the structure for the book so that I was able to write it, have it edited by her by November, and she then introduced me to my publisher, Parole Agrol of Serapis Bay Publishing. And Parole, funnily enough, actually, Wendy introduced me to her, and she's in America. And it turned out that Parole had also been the publisher for several Monaco women who had published a book through her. So, you know, synergy and synchronicity. And I instructed Parole with Wendy to publish the book on the basis that it came out very, very quickly, because I was really mindful that this book was essential and necessary and relevant for now, because people are going through such uncertainty in their life and such change and instability, and they need help. So Parole took on the mission as well, and from start to finish, the book was published in less than 5 months, and it was launched in January this year, January the 19th, and it actually became an overnight international bestseller, which affirmed for me how it was really necessary and essential and relevant. And it is helping people in the way that I really wanted. So it's been fabulous. So to get back to your original question, and sorry, that was a bit of a long answer. You know, it really wasn't something that I'd had in mind for very long at all. It came to me at the end of August last year, beginning of September, but then it just happened very, very quickly. And that is thanks to Sammy, thanks to Wendy, who really kept me on track and was my motivation and really helped me through any times that I was blocked. She always got me back to writing from my heart, which is really, really important. And then Parole as well, fantastic support to get it published in a very, very short space of time.
Yeah, so you're the living proof that we can write a book in a short period of time and get it published.
Yes.
So it's a good message also for maybe other women who want to tell about their story or have another type of book to write. Sometimes we think, it's going to take years, right, to write a book. I would never have thought that it can take just a couple of months.
Yes.
And to do it so professionally.
Yes. And also as well, yes, I would wholeheartedly encourage anyone who feels that they do have a book in them to get it out there and to get it out, you know, write your story, express your story. And if you do that and you feel it and you always write it from your heart, it will flow and it will be done then in the space of time that it needs to be written.
And during this pandemic, you managed to do a launch party. So different launch parties than we can think for a book. So not a room full of people, but something online. And it was quite a success. So you had some speakers lined up to talk about, well, a bit of their expertise, but also about the book. How did you come up with this idea? Is it something that you thought from a long time, or this just came out when you were about to publish the book?
Well, again, I think that it was something, being very mindful of how we are all communicating on Zoom and other platforms. So it seemed to be very appropriate as well that I should communicate my book launch via Zoom online. And I really wanted it to be, though, that it was very interesting for my audience, that it had not only me speaking about the book, but it had guest speakers who each had something to contribute of their different experience and their different perspective of the book as well. So if anyone is considering doing a book launch or any kind of launch online, I would say invite your contact list, send out the invitation as wide as you can, and always with any book launch or any launch that you are doing, that it's something that's very personal to you, savor and enjoy every precious moment. Mm-hmm. When you launch a book, it's a very emotional day. It's the birth of your baby, your book into the world.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And so, you want to be able to enjoy it. I think that it's very helpful if someone can deal with the technical aspects of the Zoom or the online platform that you use, if you go that route, so that you can focus on the guests and your message. Give information about the book, special offers to promote it on launch. Keep it to an hour. Because then you've got time at the end to interact with people. And I think that an hour is quite enough, even if you do have guest speakers. And the great thing about Zoom or online platforms is that people don't have to stay for the whole time, and they can dip in and out if they want. So I think that it's actually a very good idea to do that for a book launch or for anything, a product as well that you're launching. Because, it can involve people in a way that is interactive, and it's very interesting for them, but at the same time, they can dip in and out, and they don't have to stay there for the whole time.
Yeah, or listen and do something else at the same time.
Yes.
At least to get some insight of what's going on.
Yes, absolutely, yes.
Yeah. So let's dig a bit into the book, and let's take an example that will obviously speak to everybody. The pandemic part, so dealing with a pandemic. You have a beautiful message that I'd like to read. It's what I've learned is that whatever is going on in the world, and however bad, it is always best to appreciate all the positives in your life. Rather than focusing on what you are not sure of, concentrate on what you know. That you have love, laughter, the sun, the moon, the flowers, and the sea. I think it's a beautiful message. It makes me think of a quote from Oscar Wilde. I don't know if it's does this inspire you too? The quote is, "With freedom, books, flowers, and the moon, who could not be happy?"
Oh gosh, no, that's a lovely quote, and I love Oscar Wilde. So thank you for putting me on the same level as that. It really was, something that I really felt very deeply about, and the structure of the book is. It's very, very easy to read. It's not War and Peace. It's a great. It's quite short and to the point. But each chapter deals with my experience of change in that chapter, as you mentioned at the start, such as divorce, bereavement, changing countries, career. And then, yes, there is this chapter about the pandemic. And what I do in each chapter is then to say what I have learned and to give communication techniques for my reader to communicate their way through the same or similar experiences. And so there are affirmations at the end to kind of reinforce the message. So in the chapter about the pandemic, what I say is that what I've learned is that this is a period of immense uncertainty and instability. And now more than ever before, when health and mental health is the most important part of our lives, we must protect ourselves and our loved ones in any way we can to stay well. And the exercise in this chapter I call Share Your Loss, because I think that the first thing that we must do in a period of such change is to acknowledge that it is a time of loss. We have lost our usual way of living that was familiar and known. And this is all unknown. We still don't know what are going to be the ramifications of this pandemic. We're still living through it. And every day is very different. We're getting different information as well. And so what I want my readers to do is to kind of acknowledge that loss and acknowledge that you may be feeling that you are losing out and that this is totally abnormal, and accept that it's helpful for you to acknowledge that and recognize it. Acknowledge the feelings of anxiety, acknowledge the feelings of loss, and accept that, and give yourself permission to feel grief for the life that has changed so drastically and for the uncertainty that pervades. We kind of feel that we have to be, oh no, I can get through this, I'm fine, and it's not a problem. But actually, you're not fine, and it is a problem, and it is an issue, and acknowledge that, and actually give yourself permission to acknowledge that. It is a grief. We've lost something that is very well known to us, our whole way of being.
It's important to put these words on what's happening because, well, it's clearly a loss. As you say, we lost our normal life somehow.
Yes. And I do believe that by sharing your feelings of loss, you will help yourself to express the way you are responding at this time, and you will see that it is acceptable for you to feel that way. I'm the kind of person who writes lists. I don't know if you do, Serena.
I do, of
okay,
course.
Great. So I think that even during this time, write a list of all the activities that you are missing and you feel that you cannot do anymore, however small or large, and share that list with someone close to you and see if they have a list and if it's the same. Because then, by you sharing those feelings of loss, by you sharing those lists as well, you can actually see where you and your partner or your loved one are at this point. And then you can move forward, because you can make new lists of, okay, so what are we going to do now? What can we look forward to now? How can we create a new life together in happiness and health? And what's important to us now, because I think that for many of us our priorities have changed too, and it's a different perspective. So I think any opportunity to share that with your loved one, and if that is through a list, then why not? It's all communication, and communication comes from the Latin communicare, which is actually all about sharing. So share.
Yeah. And I guess by sharing the list, you can also figure out that some things you can do in a different way, that is not perfect, but that can also bring you together with other people.
Yes, definitely. Yes, I mean, share the lists far and wide with all of your loved ones, because everyone is going through this. That's the thing, it is a global phenomenon. So you can share it far and wide and learn from each other's lists as well. And it will give support and help. I think the affirmations at the end of that chapter really will help reinforce that message. One of them is, I take control of my world and adjust it for my benefit despite this enforced change. And so I think that, by writing the list, that is taking control. And then sharing that with someone close to you, or a lot of people close to you, you can then adjust it for your benefit and for the benefit of your loved ones. And that will then help you to give you the other affirmation, which is, there is always hope in uncertainty. And I think it's so important that we never lose hope. There is hope. The other affirmation, this period without structure and routine, gives me time to restructure, rebuild, and redevelop new ways of being. So I think, it's like I really love astrology, and not in terms of what's going to happen tomorrow, but in terms of the characteristics of each astrological sign, but also that, it does give you, when Mercury goes retrograde, it gives you time to reflect. It gives you time to readjust. It's all of the relax, all of those re's, which actually in this time of uncertainty and instability, you can actually use it as a period, rebuild, restructure, and really get your priorities, readjust. What are your priorities? So that you can live your life in accordance with them. And that will help you to take back control too. Yeah. And it will give you hope. And there should always be hope, even in uncertainty.
That's a very positive message. That's good. All right, let's move to a different topic. It's a general comment, but I think it's kind of a global understanding that women usually are a bit shy to promote themselves. I think it's from education that little girls are not really educated to talk about themselves, to put themselves forward. So Alicia, you've been through a book launch. You had to promote yourself recently a lot online. I'd like to have your take on that. How can you promote yourself well and don't sound about bragging about yourself? I think it's something you do well. So I'd like you to give some, maybe your take and maybe some tips for women who sometimes feel too shy about talking about the accomplishments they've done.
Thank you, Serena. That's very kind of you to say that, because it is very difficult. When you're being interviewed, a lot of the time you're saying I, and that could come across as being bragging and immodest. But it's hard not to use that description. But I think that generally you must always consider that whenever you speak, it is never about you. It's about your audience. It's about what you want them to think, feel, or do as a result of your conversation or presentation. So if you think about it in those terms, it's never about you. It's about your audience. And so that way you are communicating to make your audience to feel good about themselves, to feel confident and comfortable, relaxed and at ease. So if you think about the other person and you offer them information and you give them something that they can take away from your communication, you're not going to then come across as being boastful. You're not going to come across as being bragging, because actually what you are doing is thinking about the other person.
Yeah, and the message they will receive from you.
Yes.
You're just a medium in the process.
Yes.
It's about what you give to them.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
All right. And as a corporate communications trainer, you must see a lot of mistakes that people do when communicating. So when speaking in public or when doing a presentation, online or in person. Well, today it's more online, but you must have seen everything.
Yes, I certainly have seen a lot. I think that what is important is that you engage with your audience. For me, any communication is a conversation. And it doesn't matter if it's with one person, 10 people, 10,000 people. It is still a conversation. And when you have a conversation, you look the person in the eye when you speak to them. Because if you don't, the person that you are communicating with or having that conversation with thinks, well, why aren't they looking at me? they're not interested in me? Is there something wrong with me? You know, all of these questions and doubts come into your head if you are not looked at when you are speaking to someone. Mm-hmm. So what we have to do is to replicate what we do when we hold a conversation in person, one-on-one, with our audience, whether or not it's online or in person. So we need to achieve the same effect as if we were talking to them, even if we are presenting, even if we are not in the same room, and even if there is 100,000 people. So how do we do that? Well, if it's in person, what you need to do is to snake around the room. So you snake around the room so that everyone in the room feels that you are looking at them.
When you say that, I'm thinking of the Nokia game, the snake, like
yes.
really going to the right and then to the left and again.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, that's a great example, and thank you for sharing that. The example that I give is always when we used to go to the airport mm-hmm. and checking in. And before you could check in, you had to snake around before you actually got to bag drop. And then you would snake around to go through customs and immigration. So I give that example. But yours is lovely. I'll probably use that in the future. Thank you very much. If you don't remember snaking, then think one sentence, one pair of eyes. One sentence, one pair of eyes. One sentence, one pair of eyes. And then you will make the audience feel that you are speaking to everyone in the room. Now, my students say to me, that's all very well, Alicia, but I am talking to people who are in the dark. Mm. The audience is in the dark. So how can I achieve that effect? And I say to my students who ask me that question, very good question, gold star. And the answer is this, that you will know the room. You would have gone to the room first. You will know how it is configured. So you know where people are sitting. So you do, as I just said, you talk as if people are seated in every seat in that room. Because it doesn't matter if someone isn't seated in row 5, if they're not seated in seat number 36. The effect is that everyone in the room will feel that you are talking to them. So it's snaking, or it's one sentence, one pair of eyes, one sentence, one pair of eyes. That's if you are in person. If you are on camera, you need to look at the camera, not at the screen.
That's a very good advice in
yes.
this day and age when we are online.
Yes.
And sometimes you have people who just
they're looking everywhere.
Yeah, they
yes.
watch what they see. They don't
yes.
watch at
no.
their camera.
No.
Yeah.
And you will be amazed at the difference. Immediately you look at the camera rather than the screen.
It makes a connection.
Exactly. And that's what it's all about. It's making that connection so that your audience feels that you are interested in them and that you are interesting. Have the camera at eye level or slightly above, and it will really, really improve the effect that you have on screen. You will look engaging, engaged, interested, confident, and in control. And as a result, your audience will feel interested, engaged, and they will feel confident in you.
Do you have some other tips when we don't feel at ease? Like these were practical tips on what to do to sound better, look better. But deep inside, you know, before a presentation, online or in real life, do you have some practical tips to prepare you mentally for the public speaking?
Yes. I think that, as I said before, it's never about you. It's about the audience. So that takes the onus off of you immediately. So if you do feel nervous about your communication and your conversations, it's not about you. It's about the audience. And so if you think about them, it immediately takes the onus off of you. But I do understand that people do get nervous, and if you do, and you get shaky, and that's perfectly normal, that should happen. I've been doing this for a very long time, and there are occasions when I get nervous and shaky. So what I do, and I advise you to do, is to clench everything very, very tightly. Clench, clench, clench. Clench your arms, clench your legs, clench your stomach, clench your bum, clench everything. Tight, 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 tight. And then release. So clench and release. And it calms everything down. You'll be amazed at the effect of calming everything down. And the wonderful thing about clenching and releasing is nobody knows that you're doing it. Mm-hmm. So that's something that you can do. Also, I actually just took a sip of water, and I was able to do that because I've got a glass of water by my side. But sometimes your mouth gets dry, mm-hmm. and there isn't a glass of water to hand. So very gently bite the inside of your cheek. Very, very gently. I don't want to inflict any pain or discomfort. If you bite it very gently, left or right cheek, inside, immediately you've got saliva in your mouth. Mm. If you don't want to do that because you are afraid of drawing blood, and I really don't want you to do that, you can instead run your tongue around the front of your teeth. And if you do that very quickly, nobody will know that you've done it, and it will help you to have saliva in your mouth. Another tip that I would say is that when we get nervous and anxious, we forget to breathe. And it's very important that we do breathe, because otherwise we're dead. So we need to remember to breathe, and I give my students an exercise which is to breathe in for 7 and then let out the breath for 11. But the breath, when you take the breath, it's almost like you are inflating a balloon in your stomach. Mm-hmm. So you breathe in, inflating that balloon in your stomach for 7, and then you deflate the balloon, letting the breath out for 11. And not only is that going to then get you into the rhythm of breathing, it will also help you to have more breath when you speak, because the breath needs to come from the diaphragm and the stomach rather than from up in your chest. And another thing that I would say is turn the words around, turn your thoughts around. Instead of saying, I'm scared and I'm nervous, say, I'm excited. And this is an opportunity. This is an opportunity to share wonderful me with you.
Yeah, the word you talk to yourself really impactful on how you feel. Yes. And it's true that being nervous or being excited, the body feels it the same way. So then it's just about our brain to turn around into a different perspective. Yes,
to turn it around, to really make it an enjoyable experience. You know, I always feel that we prepare and we practice so hard for our presentations and our communications, and they're over so very quickly. It's like, you know, you plan for your wedding day, and there's all of that time you plan and plan and plan, and then it's gone so quickly. And so really, you know, really be in that moment and make the most of that moment and see it as an opportunity always to share wonderful, wonderful you. I think as well that, you know, this podcast is so kindly about women and really showcasing women, which is wonderful, and I'm very grateful for that, Serena. But I think, you know, women need help sometimes in being able to assert themselves and to communicate effectively. And so I would say to any women listening, but actually it applies as well to men, that you should know that you are always in control of your communication. I always say to my students and clients that if someone throws a ball at you, you don't have to catch it. And that's the same with your communication. If someone asks you a question or makes a comment, you actually don't have to answer it. You can take your time, and you can take your time in your response, and you can stick to your message. You know, if you look at politicians being interviewed, they will always stick to their message, and you can do exactly the same. Take your time. You don't have to talk. People think that when they're presenting and when they are publicly speaking or when they're communicating, that they have to talk. It's a conversation. Mm-hmm. So you can stop, take your breath, reflect on what it is that you want to say, pause, and then continue. Nobody will know if you've made a mistake because we don't know what you're going to say. So don't apologise if you don't say what you hadn't intended to say. I wouldn't know that. I don't know what you're going to say. So feel your power always, ladies and gentlemen, feel your power in being in command of your communication and your conversations. And I think that that will really help you always when you are communicating in any way, whether it be in person or online. You're in control, you're in command.
Yeah, I really like this idea to be in control, because what goes out of your mouth, basically, we cannot control a lot of things, but this we can control.
Yes, we can. We can. And it's what we want to say. Mm. And nobody knows what we're going to say. So, you're always in command. And I think just that feeling as well of that you don't have to talk. You can pause and you can take your time. If you've got notes and you lose your place in your notes, take your time, refer to them. Keep engaging. It's really, really important. But look at your notes, glance at your notes, come back to the screen, come back to your audience, keep engaging.
And usually the audience doesn't notice if there is a little pause.
No.
When we take our breaths, they just think it's normal.
Yes,
yeah.
Yes.
And so actually we make a story out of it, but then nobody sees it.
Nobody notices. Yeah. Nobody knows. And actually it can be used for effect as well, sparingly, that if you feel that you've lost your audience's attention, if you pause just for a second and then you come back, the audience will come back to you as well. Mm-hmm. So it can be used for effect, but as I say, sparingly, otherwise it loses the impact. But most of all, I think that it's to know that you can take your time.
Great. Thank you for all these practical tips, Alicia. So we reached the end of the podcast, and I have some questions that I ask every guest. So the first one is, do you have some words of wisdom or a quote or a mantra that really resonate with you and help you, guide you?
Yes, I turned to Oprah Winfrey, and she said, "Your legacy is every life you have touched to be a light to someone."
Beautiful. And do you have any resource to share? Some things that have helped you in your professional life or in your personal life? It could be whatever resource, like a book, a podcast, or a video.
I think on a personal level, Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger had a big impact on me because I read it after my brother died, and the book and the main protagonist, Holden Caulfield, really resonated with me. But I'd also like to add a category to this question, Serena, if you don't mind.
Sure.
And that is music, because music is so very important to me. It really is such a big part of my life, and I use music in my training. And in fact, the theme of my training is Bruno Mars' 24 Karat Magic. For many reasons, because it's a great song and it really gets people going and it's uplifting and it's terrific in that regard, but also because I feel that my training is helping people to produce magic when they communicate. Because when you see a magician do their magic tricks, you think, how do they do it? And my training and teaching and coaching is based on the fact that I give people the tools and the techniques so that when they communicate, people say, How do you do it?
Beautiful. All right. Do you have a good habit, Alicia? Something that makes you more effective or more efficient in your life?
I think that there was the famous talk by US Navy Admiral William McRaven, and it was to make your bed every morning.
Yes.
And I think that's something that again really resonates with me, because if you start each day with a task completed, it's not only going to give you discipline, but it will also demonstrate that the little things in life matter. And I really do believe that. I'm a Virgo, going back to astrology, but I'm all about detail and very pernickety and about that. But the devil is in the detail. I think that little things in life really do matter. So that is a good habit, I think, to be efficient and effective. And the other habit is that I would say to do vocal exercises, and particularly the vocal exercises that I give to my students. So come and join me, join Team Alicia, which is my team that helps people in their communication. If you do vocal exercises every day, even if only for 5 or 10 minutes a day, with different emotions, that is going to strengthen your voice and develop your expressiveness and your vocal variety. People forget that your voice is your brand. Mm-hmm. We spend a lot of time investing in our brands, in the way that we look, in the way that we market ourselves, our mission statements. And we forget that the moment that we open our mouths, all of that investment can go down the plug hole. Because if your voice then comes across as too high or too low or too scratchy, it's really going to affect your image and your branding. So really focus on your voice brand, how you want to develop that. And one of the ways that you do that is to do vocal exercises.
And to warm your voice in the morning.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
It makes you more assertive than like you feel like you're ready for your day.
Yes.
Somehow.
Yes.
In the way you express yourself.
Yes. I mean, we do exercises. We do exercise. We go to the gym. We run. We walk. We do physical exercises. But part of that regime should be exercising the muscle that is your voice.
Last question, Alicia. What is your favorite place in Monaco?
I would have to say, Serena, that it is Stars and Bars. Because it's always so welcoming. I know that the food is great, and my beloved Annette is the marketing manager there.
And the view is beautiful from Stars
and the view is incredible too. It's one of the best views in Monaco. That star deck is absolutely wonderful, and there's been so many happy times shared there. So yes, Stars and Bars for me.
Great. Where can listeners know more about you? Maybe know what you can provide as training, as coaching, find you online. Where do you direct them? And maybe give a few words on what you can offer to some corporations or some individuals who would like to improve their presentation and speaking skills?
I would say go to my website, www.aliciasedgwick.com. And there you will find out about my communication training and my MC work. It will also give you a link to buy my book from Amazon, wherever you are in the world, Communicating Through Change. And if you read that book, you will really learn all about me. And I think that if you go to LinkedIn, if you go to Facebook, LinkedIn, I'm there as Alicia Sedgwick. On Facebook, I'm there as Alicia Sedgwick and also Alicia Sedgwick Communications Coach, and on Instagram the same. And if you go to any of those sites, you will get to see who I am and really get in touch with me through email. and through those various platforms. And we can talk about your needs and your requirements, because, everyone has their needs when it comes to being able to communicate effectively. And I can design and tailor whatever it is that you need as an individual or your corporation needs too.
Awesome. Thank you, Alicia. And I hope I will take this habit to make some vocal exercise in the morning to feel better when I start my day. So thank you very much for sharing all these tips. And we'll put all the links in the show notes for your book and all your social media and your website.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to speak with you, Serena. And I really do appreciate all of your support. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And that's it for today. If you liked the episode and want to hear more stories of Superwomen of Monaco, subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. Please help me grow Superwomen of Monaco by leaving a 5-star review on iTunes. One last thing, I am testing a new business idea, an innovative undergarment for women. I would love to have your thoughts and feedback. Please head to akimba.fr, AKIMBA, to find out more.